shifting gears, sort of doing about one third here. So shifting gears. What is this guy's name again? Yes, Kent Brandenburg, King James only guy, evidently quote unquote Reformed King James only guy. I mentioned on the program a week or two ago the article on the Logos forums. Now, I have no interest in getting sucked into the Logos forums, but most of the nasty stuff that I've seen coming at me has been posted by people on forums. Puritan board, Logos forums, whatever. There just seems to be something about hiding behind a keyboard that allows people to just speak in absurd ways. I knew I recognized the Kent Brandenburg name, and I looked at aomin.org, and I had once personally mentioned some weird King James only thing he had said. And then Alan Kirshner had actually written, I think, 2 or 3 articles taking apart some claim he made about Psalm 12. That was about all there was. Well, the guy that accused me of not believing the 1689, the guy that I talked about the ecclesiastical text stuff about, and, you know, he was saying if he would just believe that, then he wouldn't take the positions that he did and the rest of that stuff. That's why I did the segment I did, pointing out that that is an abjectly ahistorical abuse of the writers, the framers, the 1689 and others. Well, of course, they don't respond to that part. They respond, well, you know, it's sort of unfair to cite them when the issues that we are now debating were not issues that they themselves were facing. They didn't have a Byzantine text and an Alexandrian text and a Western text, and they didn't have the papyri and all the rest of the stuff. Neither did Bergen, for that matter. And they didn't have all this stuff, but we're going to cite them anyways. And if you disagree with them, even though they weren't addressing what we now know today, then you actually don't believe in these things, and so on and so forth. It's common amongst people who don't do history very well, or use history as a bat, not really honoring history and trying to be truthful about it. Well, that guy, then someone sent me a link, is I'll debate James White and will blah, 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 you know, all this kind of stuff. And then he links to this article by Kent Brandenburg. And here's the title: More James White on the version issue. Either he doesn't know what he's talking about or he's lying. I'm just sort of surprised there's not more all caps underlined with red blinking HTML in this. Because it we've all seen some of those vintage 2001 King James only websites that you know, with the revolving background and all the rest of that kind of stuff. Yeah, we remember those things. Anyways, we did. Yeah, that was it, thankfully not for too long. But anyway, this is from Monday, August 3rd. Is it possible that Christians were wrong on the doctrine of preservation of Scripture for hundreds of years? Stop. Immediate. You know what I need to find on eBay is a little straw man doll. A little straw man doll. That's what I need to find on eBay. And I'm just going to keep them down here.
I don't think the fire code would allow it.
No, we don't have to light him up. I'm not going to light up the straw man. I'm just going to hold him up in front of the camera. Straw man! Put it back down. See how many times we can put a little number up. The straw man too. You know, just do that type of thing. I can put him on a little thing to just up in front of the camera. You know, have a little space appear. Because there's just so many straw men out there. When your first sentence is a straw man, you know the rest isn't going to go very well. And that's the way it is. Is it possible that Christians are wrong in the doctrine of preservation of Scripture for hundreds of years? Hundreds of years ago, they did not know what we know today about the character of manuscripts. that means that to try to drag them in and make them participants in the current debate is illogical and dishonest, Mr. Brandenburg. Okay, so straw man number one. Were they bibliological apostates? That's a big, serious charge, but it is one that James White has been making again and again in recent videos to erase the record of biblical and historical beliefs in the preservation of Scripture. That is just lying. Why are King James onlyists so willing to lie through their teeth? I don't get it. I mean, so many people in this audience have read this book, or they've watched the Mount Impassable debate on Revelation TV, or whatever else it might be, and they have watched debates where I have defended the preservation of Scripture. And so, to make this kind of absurdly dishonest argument just destroys any kind of credibility right off the bat. Why do you all do this? It's a King James only trait. Sam Gipp does it. You know, Stephen Anderson. Why do you want to be associated with names like Sam Gipp and Stephen Anderson and Peter Ruckman and Gail Ripplinger? Or Will Kinney? There's another wild one. Just what is it about King James onlyism that brings this out in people? I don't understand it. It's wild. It is a falsehood that I've made this serious charge in the first place. In every century, men will be wrong in doctrine. It is an entirely other matter to say that the confessions agreed upon by essentially every believer were wrong. What confessions are you referring to? Exactly which one? There's a reason that we have the London Baptist Confession. Yeah, it's a lot like the Westminster, but there are important differences. So which one are we talking about here? The statements made about the preservation of Scripture were repeated again and again, and no one offered an alternative. The issue, as everyone who has honesty and integrity knows, is not the issue of the preservation of Scripture. It is the methodology of that preservation. It is how God did it. That's the issue. You look like you're waiting for a phone call or something. Oh, okay. It is much more likely you are wrong. To overturn the established doctrine, you better do a great job of exegesis to show that they were not true. They were not true? The writers, the confessions? What? James White does not do that. That's because you're misrepresenting me. Woo-hoo! Like he deals with most of his contemporary detractors, he calls them names. Reformed scholastics. See, this is why if you link to something this bad and this misrepresentational and this filled with bad argumentation, why should I take you seriously? Because I haven't called anyone Reformed scholastics. I read someone else who talked about Reformed scholasticism, but I likewise said that we cannot be stuck back in the period of Reformed scholasticism when the reality is there's this pile of data that the enemies of the faith are thoroughly familiar with. And if we are going to close our minds and our eyes to that to prove that we are truly reformed, then we are going to just have to stay in our little Facebook chat rooms and pat each other on the back and send each other memes of John Calvin, but that's all we're going to do because we're not going to get out in the world and make any difference. And that's my concern. I'm not overturning any established doctrine, Mr. Brandenburg. Show me the council that examined these issues and made the decision that is binding upon me. You can't do it, and you know it. You know it. You might say, well, they use this by default, not by choice. Logical, rational people recognize the difference, but in my experience, once you get into actual King James onlyism, logic and rationality take a hike.